Kia ora koutou, ko dia ho, haramai, thanks for joining us. We're here today for Waipa District Library's Author Month, and joining me is popular children's author Dawn McMillan, who fellow author Peter Millett insisted I speak to. So haramai, Dawn, welcome. Thanks for joining me.
Kia ora, Dee. Thank you. We'll blame Peter for this, won't we?
We will blame Peter.
Yes.
He'll be pleased to hear that. Now, look, we've chosen to read a number of your books for our virtual story times. Sir Singlet, Tui in a Teapot, Why Dogs Sniff Bottoms, Squeakopotamus, and that's just to name a few of them. What strikes me is how different they all are.
Well, they are. I really don't know what goes on in my head sometimes because I enjoy writing sort of both ends of the spectrum, I guess. I enjoy writing silly, fun stories. I enjoy writing really serious ones. And when I wrote Home Child, I just sat here at the computer and I cried and cried and cried because I was just so overcome with the whole thing. So I don't know how to explain my head, but it seems to go in many directions.
And how long have you been writing for, Dawn?
About 25 years now, and I started late and didn't start until we shifted up to the Thames coast. So I was a late starter, so there's plenty of time for everybody to get going. Yes, so I've had all that time of writing up here, and it's been lovely.
Yeah, great. Now, look, let's talk about bums or bottoms if people prefer, because
or butts if you're somewhere in another country.
Yes. So arguably your most famous work features a bottom, but you do have a number of other works featuring such. How did those stories come about?
Well, it's really interesting because the first one started off entirely about the bottom, the bum or the butt, whichever. And of course it had the red pants boy in it. But as I've gone on with new stories, the red pants boy has actually taken on a whole character of his own. So it's become more about him, I think, than the bums. And he continues to haunt me with more stories. I don't know how many bum stories we can have, but he continues to haunt me with some more. I think I'm sort of over him. I'm not doing any more. Then suddenly, either I think it's something or the publisher thinks it's something, and away I go again.
And I dare say your audience wants to see more as well. And I use see more.
And the other thing that's happening is that he's gathering people as he goes along. So he's developing a family, and we're now into the extended family. And of course, he's got friends, and the latest one I'm working on, which is still under wraps, has neighbours and things. So he's sort of gathering people as he goes along. And some of them with their bums, of course.
Yeah, of course. Now, look, let's talk about I Need a New Bum. It was published in 2012, but in 2018, something else happened. Now, someone who we've already named, Peter Millett.
Oh, goodness me, yes.
Organised for someone famous to read your book behind your back. Now, what was your reaction?
Well, I was doing a book tour, a Duffy book tour in Christchurch, so I had no knowledge of this at all. And, next thing I know, I sort of I've just sent your book to the Scottish Granny, and I thought, heavens. But anyway, I would never have done it because I would have been too, I don't know what the word is. I wouldn't have been forthright enough to do it, I don't think. But anyway, he did it, and did it go off with a rocket. It just was so it did huge things with that book. I mean, it was the best sales technique that you could ever think of. But more than that, it was delightful. She was so delightful when she was reading it. It was beautiful and fun. And thank you, Peter. Thank you for the sales, but also thank you for the opportunity of her reading it and reading it to her little grandson. It was really beautiful.
Yeah, isn't it fantastic?
Yes.
Now, we're not going to talk about the recent incident in the US. And in relation to the Scottish Granny as well, what did those kind of things or publicity do for a book?
Oh, definitely, it definitely boosts the sales. Absolutely. With I Need a New, but I believe that Amazon is just seeking some new stock. So I think it's gone out quite quickly from there. So it was sitting at number 3 for all books, which was interesting. It was tucked in behind James Patterson and Dolly Parton's novel, a little story that they've put out.
Yes.
But it's dropped now, so I'm thinking that maybe it'll go up again when the stocks arrive, but it doesn't really matter anyway. People have enjoyed it, so that's the main thing.
Yeah. Now, look, Peter encouraged me to ask you about an event, and it was some 20 years ago. You were where you were with the top echelon of New Zealand writers, and you and Peter were there as the new kids on the block. Did you ever see yourself joining them and being recognised as one of the greats?
Oh, well, I don't know about one of the greats, but I'm just going back to that incident. I remember Peter and I standing in the doorway, looking down through the gathering and looking at the front couple of rows of famous authors and sort of just having a laugh and saying, well, not likely we'll be there. So I do remember that. I still don't see myself as sitting in the front row. I really don't. I think that my material perhaps isn't quite sophisticated enough to be in the front row. But I mean, I'm having a ball. I've had a ball for years and years, and I've done lots of school readers and things, and I've loved that. And yeah, I've loved being out in the schools, doing school visits. So I've had a ball. I don't need to worry about where I sit at the front or the back.
Well, Peter certainly rates you highly. He rates you in the top 10 writers in New Zealand. So
no, Peter's biased, I think, but that's very nice. Probably because we share the same sort of humour, Peter and I, you see. So he probably is biased because of that, really.
He certainly has a sense of humour, and I can tell that you do as well. Now, look, just before we go, on your website, you ask visitors to ask you any questions. So I'm curious to know, what is the most memorable question you've been asked?
That's an interesting one to answer, really, because I don't get as many questions through there as I thought I would. But I do, they're very interested in my cat. They're more interested in the cat than they are me, I think. And one of the questions, it was not really a question, it was a request that came through, was from a mum whose little girl was having trouble going to the toilet because she'd had the book read to her, the I Need a New Bum, and she was worried that her bum might crack and fall off if she went to the toilet. So I had to fix that one up in a hurry. And that one didn't actually come through my question. It came through the messengers that did. So I had to write a note to dear Florence and explain that it's perfectly all right. It was only in the boy's imagination, and it didn't really happen at all.
No, that's so cute.
But I've had sort of lots of questions. I have had some. It's interesting, rather than questions on that page, I get children or authors coming through and suggesting that I write about something, or having that's what's come through there, more ideas on content and more comments on content rather than questions. So one question that they do ask, or has been asked, is, why don't I write a girls' bum book? I just said I haven't really got an idea for that and left it at that. I thought that could get a bit dicey, yes. Yeah.
Oh, well, maybe that's down the track. Well, maybe Peter could write it.
It could be a bit dicey, that one. We might get into trouble.
We won't suggest it to him.
No.
So what I was going to ask kind of in closing is, can you give us just a sneak peek as to what you're working on at the moment? Just a little peek.
Really, it doesn't take much working it out, does it? It's another bum book.
Fantastic. See, everyone will be pleased to hear it.
I think so. I think that'll be fun, and I must acknowledge Ross in this. His illustrations are fantastic. And we have such a lot of fun together working through the illustrations. So I'm very happy to have him as my partner.
Yeah, do you give him the ideas, or does he read it and go, I know what this looks like?
Generally that. Very, very rarely do I have to give him any illustration briefs. Because when I write sort of from pictures in my mind, and it's uncanny. When Ross does the illustrations, I see what I've been thinking without us even talking. But there's tweaking, of course. And sometimes I have to say, oh, maybe not quite like that. Because he's got a wicked sense of humour, Ross has.
Maybe there's an adult version coming as well.
We've often thought we should do adult versions.
Oh, look, Dawn, speaking to you has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for your time and good luck for the next book.
Very welcome. Thank you, Dee.
Ka
Bye.
kite.
Bye-bye.